this growth didn't happen only because me or my co-founder were working. We have a team, and this award is really for the team. It's things we built with our team. And one really important thing for us in our values as a company is we always highlight the importance of ownership and passion, loving what you do. So if you don't have that in an industry like ours, which is creative, it's not just engineering, it's not just code because you're good at developing software. We are creating new things, new products. So we want our developers to not only want to see this as a job, but be passionate about what they are creating. What we're creating always is a product that people are gonna touch, they're gonna use it for something important in their life. So,
welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we're going to talk about why and how to hire passionate employees. Passion may not be required for every aspect of the job, but when you have people that are truly, engaged in what they're doing and they are passionate about the work that we're doing, the clients, the results, and even the process, you're going to have a much better place to work. People are going to be more creative, more strategic, and you'll have better outcomes. That's our claim. But we're going to talk to you today about how to actually determine whether someone has the passion to really move the business forward and be a good, productive team member. Our special guest today is the co-founder and CEO of Hello Iconic. They've recently made the Inc. list. They've got about 90 employees, but we talked with Alejandro Corpeño, and he and I discuss how to hire passionate employees. We kick it off with why it's important, and you probably already know the why, but we just wanted to tune in to exactly why, but then how do you assess whether someone has passion? He gives some very specific things in there, and I add to that with the way I determine whether someone has a sense of passion and sense of ownership. And so when you listen to today's interview with Alejandro, you'll get some wisdom about hiring that you probably didn't have before. So my name is Gene Hammett. I am an executive coach. We have a whole team of people, coaches, that really help managers become leaders, and that's our leadership development arm. And all together, we're really helping companies continue to grow. Mostly we work with fast growth companies. Most of our clients are in the Inc. 5000, and they're growing at a pace that requires them to do things a little bit different, be a little bit more proactive. And that's probably the one reason why you're listening here today. And if you want support with any of the things that you're doing culture-wise or leadership-wise, we'd love to get to know you and what you're doing. One way to do that is to sign up for our executive virtual conversations. So these are not webinars. These are really unique tools that we use. Just go to coreelevation.com and find the virtual conversations. It's all over the website, but you'll see what it is. And the next one coming up is in a few days, but you will be able to see if the topic's right for you, sign up. If the topic's not right for you, you can even sign up. We'll get you recordings and you can be on the list for the next one, because we'd love to serve you, get to know you. It's an easy way for you to tune into what other CEOs of other Inc. 5000 or fast growth companies are doing and saying, and you can participate or you can just sit and listen. But that'd be the first stop with this, because it's a very unique experience of learning from what other CEOs of fast growth companies are saying and doing. So with all that being said, just go to genehammett.com. If you want to talk to me, and if you want to join this executive conversations, go to coreelevation.com and sign up today. Now, here's the interview with Alejandro. Alejandro, how are you?
good, doing fine. How about yourself?
Well, I'm great. I'm excited. This is my first interview of the new year, and we're going to dive into our conversation about how to hire passionate employees. Before we go to that, let's talk about your business. Tell us about Hello Iconic.
Yes. Well, Hello Iconic is a software development company. We work primarily as a professional services company. So we work with startups and larger corporations building their software projects. Specifically, our skills are around web applications and mobile. As you know, right now, most mobile applications communicate to a web component. It's usually an API. So we can build the whole infrastructure for it, the systems, and then everything around building that application, which is from ideation to wireframing, design, the actual software development, the testing of it, and then all of the product management and project management of those projects.
I've worked with a lot of companies that are in this space, but I'm curious, from your perspective, Alejandro, what do you wish CEOs understood about software development that would make your job easier?
Huh. I think thinking about our clients and the ones that are really successful when we work with them and the ones that aren't, is that I think I would really like for them to understand that in software, particularly nowadays, a product is never done. It is an ongoing thing. So if you're going to build a software-based company, you have to be ready to never stop building. And that is not something selfish from my side. It's not like I want you to hire me forever. It's more that you have to be aware of that. You don't have to hire us for all of that time. You can have your own team. We can definitely help you start and boost all of that development. But even to our clients, we recommend you should have a CTO, you should have your own team, because it will never stop. So if you come in and you think that, yeah, I'm going to do a quick build, I'm going to pay this company, and then I'm just letting it there, it's not going to happen. So if you're not ready for that, I think that's what I would recommend CEOs. Like if you're building a tech company, be ready to always be building something, because things change. You don't know if tomorrow Apple invents a new device and now all of a sudden you have to build compatibility to that device. Then cybersecurity, something happens in the internet and now you're required to do something about it. So it's a never-ending journey once you get into it.
That's a good reminder. And it makes me think of a client I had just this morning, our first meeting of the new year. They have a client that's been ongoing with them consistently, and they're doing a big integration thing. And so it's just, there's always a new project, new, evolution of what you're doing. And so you help people through the ongoing evolution of their technology projects. It's pretty good to understand what Hello Iconic does. Alejandro, we always research people that come on this. I know you made the Inc. 5000. It's your first year to make it. It's a big honor, but you didn't do it alone. Like, you have close to 90 employees. You're really continuing to grow, but you said hiring passionate people is a very critical component to it. So let me start with why do you want to hire passionate people?
Yes. Well, as you said, like, this growth didn't happen only because me or my co-founder were working. We have a team, and this award is really for the team, like things we built with our team. And one really important thing for us in our values as a company is we always highlight the importance of ownership and passion, loving what you do. So if you don't have that in an industry like ours, which is creative, it's not just engineering, it's not just code because you're good at developing software. We are creating new things, new products. So we want our developers to not only want to see this as a job, but be passionate about what they are creating. What we're creating always is a product that people are going to touch. They're going to use it for something important in their life. So one of the things that we always screen for when we interview are those principles, specifically the ownership. We want people to care about what they're building. It is tough to just, make people have ownership. You have to really filter for a predisposition to that. Maybe when we hire someone that is really junior, they don't have ownership because they don't have experience. They don't think they can have a say in the process. And we constantly remind them, like, when you are in a team, it doesn't matter if I'm the CEO and you are a junior developer. If you have an idea and if you think this is going to be better for the product, please speak up. And it is a process. Like, it takes us a couple of years for our team members to really come out of their shell and say what they're thinking. But it is important for us, for them to have that ownership. So passion comes with that. Like, if you are just joining our company because you just want to have an 8 to 5 software development job, it is not the right place for you, because we really want you to have that passion. You want to love what you're doing. And one of the things that we struggle with also, because it is that we are really flexible with are like how we supervise people. We're not on top of you all the time. We know that you know what we need to build. These are the goals, and we let it up to you to organize your time, to define how you're going to build something. And if you don't have passion and you don't have ownership, that falls apart pretty quickly. In a month, you're not accomplishing any of your goals because you're looking for someone else to own the thing, someone else to be passionate about it.
Now, Alejandro has been talking about ownership, and we're talking about the hiring process. I'm going to give you my favorite question and the little nuance behind it that will help you tune in whether someone has a sense of ownership before they actually work with you. And I call this the ownership question. It's in two parts. The first part is, tell me about a big goal that you set for yourself that you didn't obtain. And so you want to know how big they can think for themselves, and you want to know what area that there is. But that's not the most important. The most important aspect of this question is part two, which is, why didn't you achieve it? If you have someone that blames someone else, they're not one who takes ownership naturally. But if they take ownership and say, I didn't prioritize my time, I let something else get in the way, I let life, pull me away from that goal, and I wasn't able to achieve it, that's a good sign. We don't always hit our goals, but we don't want people that are willing to blame others. We want them to take ownership of that work. We want them to really be introspective. And that's a real key to people that have a sense of ownership, a predisposition, as Alejandro said. Back to our interview. I think a lot of people listening in here is like, okay, it'd be great to know whether someone has a predisposition for ownership and passion. So I'm curious, how do you determine whether someone has that kind of ingrained in their personal traits?
Yeah, it is difficult. Like, I don't want to say we have a formula because we have definitely made mistakes in the past in hiring. And to give you a little bit of background, when we started in 2011, it was a pretty small operation. It was my co-founder and myself. I was doing a lot of the web development, all the APIs, everything, all the design of the systems. And my co-founder was doing a lot of the mobile development for iOS and Android. We hired only 2 people back then to help us. And the way we found them is that my co-founder, his name is Jorge, he was teaching at a university. He was the head of the engineering department there. But then he came, we joined forces to start the company, and he went into his entrepreneurial journey, but he still had the link to the university, and he was still teaching one of the classes. So he had that insight into which students throughout the classes and everything showed that passion. They really loved what they're doing, and are particularly those people that are not only sticking to what the job asks for, but they have side projects. They always have something they're building, and maybe sometimes it's not on their field. It's not, if they're a programmer, they're not probably programming something. Maybe they have a band and they play an instrument, or they paint and they're creating something. So people that have projects that they're building show that trait of they want to build something, they want to own something. And that was the initial thing that we were looking at. We didn't have an HR person or anything. It was only my co-founder noticing some students that had those traits, and we started hiring that way. But we were not at a high growth stage at that moment. It was pretty small. We got all the way through maybe 15 employees. Then we started then getting a little bit more process on how we hire.
Yeah.
And at that point is where we made some mistakes, like just hiring and not having that insight. And we needed to really work a lot internally with our HR team just to really try to find out how now we can identify those traits without that benefit that we used to have of someone teaching in a classroom and just looking at how people work for extended periods of time.
This reminds me of some work I've done years ago where clients were being involved with local universities. This was in Florida at the time, so not internationally, but it allowed them to assess the students' real character, not just through what's on their resume, but how they actually showed up in the behaviors. And it turned out to be a really good way to find quality in people that were really the right fit for the culture, and they turned out really well compared to other hiring.
Reminds me, one of the things that we ended up doing to try to really, I want to say, engineer that process now is that we do have an internship program with the universities. So we can get students join our company for 6 months, because that's the way the universities work in Honduras, where we hire mostly. They have to do a 6-month practice in a company. So we get these students, they work with us for 6 months, and that gives us an equivalent of that insight. Like we can see how they work, how they behave.
Right.
And at the end of the practice, in some cases, we just say, okay, it's great, you get your grade, goodbye. In some cases, we're like, we really want you to work with us, and we make an offer.
Alejandro, hiring is such an critical component to this. We both agree to that. Having the right filtering of that with that's another way to say that is selecting the right people, right? And knowing that you're using those values of ownership and passion are very important. Did you get that somewhere, or did you just learn this as you started doing it? Because a lot of companies here sitting right where you are doing these interviews have talked about how important values are and how important they are to the hiring of the right people. Where did you learn that?
Well, you learn it academically, like reading and going through an MBA, you see it, but you don't really learn it until you're in the middle of growing it, right? So I've seen it around, but when we actually saw it and how important it was in 2 instances in our history. One was when we worked on a branding exercise. We used to go by another name, but then we noticed we needed to brand. So we hire a branding company, and part of the branding exercise is sort of a, introspective analysis of us as founders and how what we bring to the company is our own values. And one of the great things that made our partnership work with Jorge is that we have similar values in what we want to build, how we want to build it, the transparency we keep with our clients. So a lot of those values are really compatible. And part of our brand and our branding exercise was getting to those values. So that was the first time that we sat down for hours with the branding company and just try to identify what are our 5 core values as founders that we bring to the company. And we started to crystallize those and start to communicate those to the company. That was around 2019, I think. But then the second time we saw that is when we hired our first HR person in the company. And that was probably 4 years ago or 3 years ago. And the first questions she was asking was like, what are your core values? Again, so we had the values that we explored during the rebrand, but we realized those were not exactly the current values of the company, because we had grown so much. We had brought more people into the company, and that team being remote, like we are in Pasadena and our team is in Honduras, had developed their own set of values also, borrowing a little bit from the ones we gave initially, but now they had other values. So we did another exercise. And I think it's a long way to answer that. It is really important for you to not dictate values, but really to assess what are the actual values of your team, and then crystallize those so you can communicate them back with examples. Like, what does it mean to be a company that values transparency, ownership, learning? And then you start aligning a lot of your activities, a lot of the initiatives to those values to make sure everyone in the company is aware that those are important and that everything you do has to represent one of those.
Alejandro mentioned about updating his values. And I want to remind you, if your values are more than 3 years old, it's time to look at those. And you have all of those values audition back in to be a part of the future of the company. So you'll probably keep some, but there might be some that don't quite add value, or they're just not being used, or they just don't fit any longer because of who you are. Maybe something else is just more important. So if it's been more than 3 years, or could be 1, but at least 3 years, if you're sitting on the same values you had 3 years ago, I'm going to urge you and the executive team to sit down and go, all right, do these still accurately reflect us 100%? Do we need to make some changes? And being very intentional about that, and be okay with making those changes, because we change as companies, goals change, these values, they do change over time, just not very often. So just a reminder, it's okay to update them. And I'm reminding you to update them so that you stay aligned with everything. Back to Alejandro. This is the first time we're actually talking. I know my team did an interview with you a few weeks ago, but you're not aware of all of the work and all the interviews I've done here. We talk a lot about values, but one of the other areas we talk a lot about is ownership. When I was looking at my business 4 or 5 years ago, and you could say this was rebranding because I just really was looking for what is the direction we're going to go. I interviewed 53 CEOs just like yourself, and I was assessing what got them to where they were. And I would ask the question, how do you get your employees to take responsibility for big goals? And what came back was, well, we don't want them to just take responsibility. We want them to take ownership.
Yeah.
It was different versions of that. And I'm looking at the data and I'm like, oh, that's what I want with my employees. And that's what they want. That was actually my number one speech over the last few years of talking about how do you inspire ownership? And so you're definitely on the right path. You discovered it through this branding process, which is fantastic. I do want to ask you this too. When someone starts to lose it a little bit, how do you activate that person for more passion and ownership in the work that they're doing? Because sometimes we can't maintain the same level of focus around these things. How do you coach them to reconnect with that passion and ownership?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is difficult, and this is an area where I think we have made some mistakes and we are learning from it, because one mistake that we have done is first not being aware that that's happening. So a couple of years ago, we started being more intentional about having one-on-ones in the company. So we are aware, like, how are you doing in general? Are you struggling with something? How are your goals in learning with the company, your career path? So just being aware of that is really important. We were not doing that before, and we notice people that they feel abandoned, they feel like they are lost and they don't have anyone to talk to. So just having frequent touch points with your team, not individually because it is not scalable for the CEO to have a conversation with each one, but now having the structures where you have management, have those things in our company where we have basically it's like a matrix. It's like managers of functional teams like testing, development, design, but we also have product teams. Like a client has a product team, and a product manager manages that multi-disciplinary team, a designer, a developer. So those two touch points help us assess where people are in that spectrum of, am I still passionate about what I'm doing or not? So first is having ways to diagnose it. And once you know that something is going on, then it's more about what you're saying, like how do we motivate you? We notice a lot of time our team members are so passionate about what they're doing that they don't take vacations. And we're like, hey, it's been a year and you haven't taken any days of vacation. So we have to bring it up to them and say, like, you should take a month. I mean, it's fine. We're just planning it. So just bring in vacation time, or saying, you've been working in this particular project for 2 years already. We should put someone else there, and you can come back to a new project, something totally new that you can help us build from scratch. So changing, because the routine is what, and it's difficult, because for the business, it's great to have efficiencies and have people that know how to do that thing and do it always. Yeah. But the person is something that's going to demotivate them. So it's a balance between how do I keep my business going and have people that know what they're doing always at a client's project, but how do I avoid having them get bored? So you need to keep an eye on those two and constantly be active, measuring the sentiment and taking action. And it's time for you to move to another project. It's time for you to take a vacation or anything like that. So having those decompression periods is important for you as a manager to sometimes even dictate to your team, because sometimes they are so, again, passionate and they want to do a good job that they don't even take those breaks.
I know people are listening in say, we wish we had more employees like that. And I have a few clients of mine who I coach on the executive teams, and some of these executives, they don't take time for themselves. They don't know how to recharge and let go. And, they don't know how to cut it off at 8:00 at night. And they say yes to everything. And those are actually serious issues because it leads to burnout. And so you have to be proactive with this. So I appreciate you sharing your perspective on that, Alejandro. We're wrapping up this this whole concept of how to hire passionate people. Is there anything that we left out that you feel like is necessary for the audience to know and understand?
I think talking about software development specifically, but it may apply to other areas. But in software, we use tools to assess the skills of a person, like assessments, right? Like there is a test for React Native skills. So we apply the test, and there's also personality tests. So there's a lot of assessments we can take on a person. And I think those are good, but it's also just one dimension of the person. It is really important to be able to talk to them and to see how they, what else they do in their life. Having just a person that is focusing one thing is, I don't think they are going to be great. They, as I mentioned, a lot of our people play an instrument, play a sport, do something else.
Yeah.
So it's important for people to have something else that they do. And having a conversation about that during the interview, I think is something that at least I like to do, because you learn more about that person, and having something else that they are passionate about helps them bring ideas from other disciplines to your company and make you more diverse. So I think the assessments are good, but you shouldn't go just by the score that they get in a test. You should really be able to talk to the person, and ideally, if you can, have a period of time when you kind of test drive the relation, right? Like that example of the professional practice where we have 6 months.
Yeah.
That's ideal, because it's never the same of going through an interview, checking boxes, and then you hire the person. Until you have them in a process, working with the team, that's where you see the real fit or not.
Alejandro, thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. And it's great to see how other companies in the Inc. 5000 are going to be watching this. And yeah.
Wow. I love having interviews like this. This is the first interview I'm recording in the new year of 2024. But you probably won't hear it for a couple of weeks, because we actually run this like a well-oiled machine. And we want to make sure that you are getting exactly what you need to by tuning in today. One of the things that happened at the end there, Alejandro was talking about, values of the company and whatnot. And it was really interesting to see him talking about how important it is to, help people find their passion. Help people to, hiring people who already have a passion is a better way to put that, but to bring that passion into the work and find a bit of alignment around something they're already doing. It's naturally inside them. They're predispositioned. And I love that part of the interview. And so I'm just highlighting that today as you think about it when you're hiring the right person for your company. When you think about your own business and you think about coaching or leadership development, we'd love to get to know you. The best way to do that is go to coreelevation.com and sign up for a virtual conversation, which is you tuning in to conversations that we have with clients and other executives of fast growth companies. And you can do that with ease. Just go to coreelevation.com. When you think about leadership and you think about growth, think about Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.